He is run by the MPT team. And Sean Slavin, the Paul Carr Racing run driver, the British driver in cart 627, is going to start fourth on the grid. On row 3, we've got Anthony Abbas, the French driver, in cart 687, run by Sodi Kart, and Jan Vonček, number 681, the Austrian driver, run by the VPDR team. On the fourth row of the grid, Oriol Dalmo Caballero, number 674, who is from Spain in his home race and run by the Motor Club Kreisel. And Morten Nom from Finland in cart 679, run by the Aix Racing team. On the fifth row of the grid, Sanad Arwahawi in cart 670 and Kevin Ludi in cart 608. Sanad from Oman, Kevin coming from Switzerland. On row 6, we've got Maxi Fleischmann from Germany in cart 660. And Martin Pierce in cart 781, who is looking to be the highest placed master here this weekend. And the highest placed master, which is the driver's age 32 and above, will get one place into the grand finals in New Orleans, the world event, the end of season world event next month. And Martin on the sixth row of the grid then. He hasn't had a good start so far. He's been caught up in a couple of melees so far, but has fought his way back. On the seventh row, Michael Christensen and Rovo Luza. Row 8, Ken Alaman and Tamsin Germain. Row 9, Jesus Perez Santander and Tom Pitlick. Row 10, Florent Lambert and Henrich Gruber. Row 11, Enrico Baptista and Thomas Peart. Row 12, Placido Adrizani and Juan Terran. And row 13, Ilja Aloskins. 25 carts then, all lined up. Andres Batman just leading them red the second green flag lap. Once again, it's going to be a 9-lap race, this final race of the day. And DD2, unlike the other classes, might get a driver that wins all 3 heats. It hasn't happened so far today in either juniors or seniors. We've had double winners, but we haven't had a triple winner yet. Andres Batman will be looking to survive the first lap, and then what he's done in the first couple of races, he's really got his head down in laps 2 and 3, built up a cushion, and then just been able to maintain that cushion throughout most of the race. Hasn't pulled away too much after the first 3 laps, but he's just kept them at arm's length. So Andres Batman now bunches up the group. He becomes the pace setter, ready for the rolling start. There you can see the rest of the field making their way out of the left-hander at turn 8 through turn 9, and the pace almost at walking pace now. Tailenders just catching up to the front of the pack. There's the shot from the bridge, the gantry over the start-finish line. And on the left-hand side of your picture, the first one you'll see will be Andreas Batman on pole position. To your right will be Tadasuke Makino if you're watching online. And here they come, and it looks like it's going to be a start. No, it's not. It's not going to be a start. It's a full start. Full start. They'll have to go around again. 1 or 2 thought it was underway. Some in the middle of the pack saw it early on, put their hands in the air and realised this was going to be a full start. So a false dawn. Just to reiterate the message across the circuit here, that at 4 o'clock, or as close to 4 o'clock as we can, we would like our pole position drivers for each class, for the junior pole driver for the pre-final tomorrow, the senior pole driver and the DD2 pole driver, to make their way to the start-finish line, where we're going to conduct some interviews which we'll then broadcast online tomorrow for RGMMC TV. So that's Ralph Aron. Provisionally, pole for juniors, and Ed Brand for seniors. And we're about to find out who the third pole position driver is going to be for the pre-final. Results of these heats give us the starting grid for the pre-final tomorrow. The pre-final then sets the grid, the result of that for the final, after which we'll know who's won the trophies, who's won the prizes, and who's going to be going through to the grand finals in America. Right, coming through turn 7 into turn 8 they come again, and once again they're pretty well bunched up. It was more to do with the fact that they spread out as they came out of the final turn rather than how close they were going into that final turn. So still, as you can see on the screen, it's a bit spread out, but Andreas Batman there to the left of the shot leading them through. Rasmus Markkinen with the white helmet tucked in behind him. He'll hope that Andres gets a good start, that he can tuck him behind him and squeeze out Tadasuke Makino from the outside of that front row. Sean Slavin also with a bit of work to do here, because he's on the outside row, which is never easy to get back onto the line. Right, the 9-lap race, I think this time is going to get underway. Andres Batman gets a bit of a tap from Rasmus Markkanen behind him. Tadasuke Makino has had a terrible start from the outside of row number 1. He was down in 6th place before they even got to the first corner. And that, of course, has held up everybody behind him, I think. So Tadasuke Makino with an awful start, which has put him right down into the pack. Everybody just about safely through the first couple of turns. One runs onto the grass but avoids a spin. Everybody else coming towards us then with the top 2 absolutely side by side. But Andreas Batman it is that leads the race for the time being. I think Oriel Dalmo Caballero has just gone through into 2nd place, so he picks up 2nd position. Rasmus Markkanen has slipped back a bit down the order, and it looks like one of the Sodi kart drivers that's got through up into the head of the field. So that's got to be Anthony Abbas, isn't it, in 2nd place. Anthony Abbas from the 3rd row of the grid, I reckon, up to 2nd. So Batman Abbas. And then it looks like Caballero, who's got through into 3rd place, with Rasmus Markkanen down in 4th position as they go into turn 9. Come back towards me, right in front of the commentary box, next to the start-finish line. Through they go. And that is the order, with Makino 5th. So I reckon Makino was 6th or 7th at the first corner, but he's got one back. And he's in 5th place, Makino. Sean Slavin just got delayed by the fact that the Japanese driver had such a poor start. He was right behind him, he nowhere to go, and he got hung out to dry, really. But he's there in 6th place, Sean Slavin. Al-Rahawi is 7th at the end of the first lap. At the end of the first lap, in 8th position, we've got Ken Alleman, the Swiss driver. Didn't even make the start of the race last time out with a problem with the kart. Fleischmann is 9th. Kevin Ludy's up to 10th. Martin Pearce is in 11th place and leading the Masters class. And Jesus Santander is 14th, 2nd in class. Lambert is 3rd in class. And Tamsin Germain hasn't had a great start to the race. She's the 4th best of the Masters at the moment. So a little bit of work to do for Tamsin. The race leader, Andres Batman, now beginning to stretch his legs on this 2nd lap of the race. But Anthony Abbas hanging on to his tail. I think the gap has opened up slightly by 1 or 2 tenths. He in turn is pulling away from this battle for 3rd place, which sees Dalmal Caballero coming under attack now from Makino. The Japanese driver has got back up to 4th place, and Makino lunges down the inside. Big lunge, big move, and it pays off. He's gone up through to 3rd place. Good move that into turn 2. So Damo Caballero, the Spanish driver, drops down to 4th place. Fleischmann is 5th. Al-Rahawi is 6th. And Markkanen has dropped down to 20th place on that lap. He lost 4 or 5 seconds somewhere. I didn't see it, but Markkanen has lost a load of places, and he's gone out of the top 3 or 4, and he's down almost at the back of the field now. Andreas Batman's advantage at the head of the field. He's built up to nearly half a second now. Anthony Abbas there in 2nd position. And Makino, the Japanese driver, having just moved up to 3rd place. So Makino fighting back. Tadasuke needs a good result here. As I said, he's gone backwards in his first 2 races from the front row of the grid. Probably had his worst start there, but he's managed to fight back at the end of the first 2 laps, and he's still in the mix there in 3rd place. Damo Caballero in 4th. There's a big gap back then to 5th. 5th place is Maxi Fleischmann. Sean Slavin is 6th. Alaman is 7th. Al-Rahawi 8th. Kevin Ludy 9th. And the Finnish driver then is in 10th place, which is Morten Nom. So that group of karts together. Martin Pearce still leading the Masters class in 11th. Florian Lambert is 2nd in class in 14th place. Tamsin Germain has moved up to 3rd in class now, ahead of Santander. So there's been a change further back in the Masters division. Top 4 all on their own then. And in 5th place, Maxi Fleischmann is just beginning to edge away from some of his nearest rivals as well, the German driver, part of the Josh Hart race team. So the top 4 weave their way through the S's. The gap opening up by a few more hundredths on the previous lap. So it's still just hovering just under the half a second advantage that Andreas Batman has. Over the line he goes. Ducking down in the kart, setting his personal best lap time is Abbas. So Batman and Abbas both set their fastest laps of the race. But again, Batman is slightly quicker. So it's over half a second now, the gap between them. And Makino is onto the tail of Abbas for 2nd position here. Trying up the inside on the way into turn 3. I think he's pulled it off, and through he goes into 2nd place. So the Japanese driver goes 2nd. The French driver pushed back to 3rd position. And the Spanish driver, Damo Caballero, is catching them all up now in 4th place. Sean Slavin's come up to 5th. In 6th position then, we've got Ken Alleman. Al-Rahawi 7th. Maxi Fleischmann has dropped several places down to 8th. Martin Pearce is in the top 10 now in 9th place. Very good effort from Martin. And in 10th place is Nom. Tamsin Germain still heading, still second in the Masters class, still heading Florent Lambert. In between them, you got Tom Pitlick in 16th place, and back up to 17th place now is the driver recovering, Rasmus Markkanen. So Rasmus Markkanen, watch him recovering up the order in kart 682. 5 laps complete. And Rasmus Markkanen tried to pick up another place here. He's onto the tail of Enrique Baptista. Can't find a way into turn 2, but he's trying to get as high at the order as he can now to recover something from this race. Andreas Batman again, it's just a tenth quicker on every lap pretty much. And so now the gap's crept out to just under a second. He's developing that gap, that advantage all the time. Makino second, Abbas in third position. In fourth place, Damo Caballero. The lap times, 62.7 for Batman, 62.8 for Makino, 63.2 for Abbas, 62.8 for Damo Caballero. So Anthony Abbas, if he keeps giving away tenths of a second like that, he's going to have Damo Caballero on his tail any moment now. I think he's had a better lap this time round though, and looks like he's hooked himself back onto the tail of Makino. Makino's got the fastest lap of the race so far, back on lap number 4. Through they come. 62.5 for Makino, 62.5 for Abbas, and yes, they both pull away that time from Damo Caballero. We're at 2/3 distance, so the top 4 look like they're settling down. Sean Slavin, a bit like heat number 1. By the time he battles his way through, in the earlier race it was to 4th, this time it's to 5th place. By the time he gets back through the pack, he's as quick as the leaders, but he can't catch them. So he's on his own really in 5th place. He's more than a second clear now of Ken Alleman in 6th position. Al Rahawi is 7th, Fleischmann 8th. The Danish driver Christensen 9th. Martin Pearce slipped back to 10th, but he is still in the top 10. So kart 781, Martin Pearce leading the Masters. Vuncek is 11th, Nom is 12th, Ludi 13th, Markkanen up to 14th now, so he's got ahead of Enrique Baptista, who's 15th. Pitlick is 16th, Germain is 17th, Lambert is 18th, and there's only a few tenths of a second between those two, so a good scrap going on there. Santander 19th, Luza in 20th. That's the top 20. Through come the leaders. The gap has come down significantly, so Batman with a 62.5, but a 62.2 for Makino has had an absolute flyer there, and the gap has almost halved on that lap. So Makino getting his head down, trying to catch the race leader here. Batman, 2 wins in a second would still be good enough for pole position, so he doesn't need to over-defend this, but he'd love to dominate the heats. 3 wins out of 3 and get the perfect day. Perfect weekend so far. Pole in qualifying, 2 wins out of 2, and he's leading this 3rd race, but Makino is making it hard for him. More like the battle we expected, really. Makino hasn't shown, or just hasn't been in the right position to show us what he can do in the first 2 heats, having qualified on the front row, but this time he is. He's really gritted his teeth. He had, as I say, a woeful start, but he's made up for it. And crosses the line onto the final lap of the race. Brings the gap down to just over 0.3 of a second. So Andreas Batman coming under a bit of pressure here. Makino is late on the brakes again on the way into turn 2. Fleischmann and Christensen having a good battle with Al Rahawi. Al Rahawi trying to fend them off at the tail end of the top 10. Meanwhile, the race leader is just about to come onto the screen through this swooping left-hander at turn 4, and reeling him in now is Makino. Look, so Makino, he's within 2 kart lengths of him. That 1 second advantage that Andreas Batman did have has been brought back down to just a couple of kart lengths. Into turn 6 they go. The Japanese driver hunting down the Swede. They've both pulled away now from Anthony Abbas in 3rd position. Through the right-hander they go into turn 7 now, and 2 corners to go. Andreas Batman has just got to keep his cool for the final 2 corners, but Makino, he's almost onto his tail now. There's 1 more corner to go. I think he's going to run out of time, though. It's going to be close at the line, though. Andreas Batman will need to be keen on the throttle here as he accelerates towards the finish line. The checkered flag comes out, and Andreas Batman does win, but only just. Right on his bumper across the line was Tadatsuka Makino. The gap in the end, 65 thousandths of a second. So that's the narrowest margin of victory we've had so far in DD2, but it's the same result. Andreas Batman wins. Andreas Batman with 3 out of 3. Andreas Batman on pole position for the pre-final tomorrow. So Batman wins, Makino second, and that was his strongest race of the day so far. Anthony Abbas in 3rd position. Excellent drive by him. Ariel Damo Caballero in 4th, Sean Slavin in 5th, and Ken Alleman, I think that's his best result so far, in 6th place. In 7th position then, we had Sanad Al-Rawawi. Maxi Fleischmann was 8th. In 9th place was the Danish driver Mikael Christensen, and in 10th place, winning the Masters class, was Martin Pearce. There are the results on screen for you to take in. Just outside the top 10, we had Markkanen recovering to 11th place in the end. Vuncek was 12th, Ludi 13th, Nom 14th, Pitlick 15th, Baptista 16th. Tamsin Germain was just about in the end second in class, finishing ahead of Lambert. So that was the gap between the second and third places in the Masters, 0.5 of a second. So the top 3 in that race in the Masters were Pearce, who was 10th, Germain, who was 17th, Lambert, who was in 18th place. So with 3 wins out of 3, there's no doubt that Andreas Batman will be the driver that starts the pre-final tomorrow on pole position. Anthony Abbas has had now 2 seconds and a 4th, and I think that is just about going to be enough to put him onto the front row of the grid as well, alongside Andreas Batman, and Sean Slavin I think will be on the second row of the grid just behind them. So that's the way it will shape up. Well done to our triple race winner, Andreas Batman. Tremendous drive by the Swede, and winning by reduced margin of just 65 thousandths of a second, but he'll get pole position. There on screen you can see the rest of the results, and it looks like we've got a tremendous race ahead for us in DD2 tomorrow.